Hello viewers, hopes all of you are fine. Today I am going to discuss with you something very important about essay writing. You have been writing essays for several years and probably there is nothing more distasteful to you than the thought of sitting down to write one. There is no reason why this should be so because the writing of an essay is really and can be made a fascinating occupation. Now, question is what is after all an essay? An essay is a literary composition on any subject, usually in prose and short is the information supplied by the concise Oxford Dictionary. The essay differs from a treatise in being less elaborate and from a sermon. It is a brief and fragmentary attempt which expresses a problem in terms of one's personality. It is something personal, direct, and intimate. According to modern literary canons, an essay can be written on any subject from a piece of chalk to God Almighty, or as Robert Lyne puts it, anything from the Day of Judgment to a pair of scissors. According to Benson, the essential point about an essay is not the subject, but the charm of personality which pervades the entire essay. The subject does not matter. What matters is that the thing or the thought should be vividly apprehended and expressed with a certain measure of gusto. The essay has also been defined as a lyric in prose because, like the lyric, it expresses personal feelings and sentiments. From all this discussion, three things clearly emerge. Number one, the essay is a short literary composition. Number two, it states a problem from an individual point of view. Number three, it is light and pleasant in tone. Actually, the essay is a moderately brief prose discussion of a restricted topic. Literally, the word means an attempt. When the French philosopher Montaigne retired from active life to devote himself to study and reflection, he originated this form of composition towards the end of the 16th century and published his first collection of writings in 1580 under the title Essays, the first use of the word for short prose discussions. Now I want to discuss with you what essay is in America. The first really great essayist in America is Washington Irving, whose sketchbook contains essays of Addisonian type. Now I want to discuss with you what is essay in America. The first really great essayist in America is Washington Irving, whose sketchbook contains essays of the Addisonian type. Some of H.T. Thoreau's works, Walden exhibited characteristics of informal essays. Dr. Johnson tells us that an essay is a loose sally of the mind, an irregular, undigested piece. Johnson probably meant no more by this than that the essay is an unassuming literary form, that its range is modest, and that it makes no pretensions to thoroughness. If he did so, he was no doubt correct because that is what the essay is, a form of intimate self-expression which gives one the opportunity to set down one's thoughts and feelings and experiences relating to a particular subject in an interesting and attractive manner. In other words, something personal, familiar, informal, and pleasing. The modern English essay is usually characterized by being an intimate revelation of the writer's personality in a way in which a more formal treatise would not be. Students in schools and colleges are continuously made to read essays by great writers and are asked to use them as model for their own essays. While it is right to take great essayists as models, but most be borne in mind that the essay which a student is expected to write is a somewhat different kind of composition from the essays of great writers. Arrangement, construction, and contents are of great importance in students' essay. It is dangerous for the student to write like Charles Lamb or Hazlitt without first practicing a simpler and more formal type of writing. But from the essay writer whom we read, we must learn that an essay should be interesting and must reveal the personality of the writer. Now the question is sometimes asked which of the essays should be taken for models. If this means which should be followed with slavish imitation, the answer is none. That would result in stiffness and unnaturalness. It is also easy to copy faults and difficult to imitate virtues, but the student will benefit by carefully studying Addison, Goldsmith, and Macaulay. It must not be understood that other essays should be neglected, but these three are likely to be most suitable for the beginners. There is an art of composition to be cultivated by paying persistent attention to certain broad and fundamental principles of writings. Now, you cannot make an essay attractive if you do not give it lightness, grace, and ease. Nor can you make it interesting unless you show that you are interested yourself in what you are saying. It is here that the personality of the essayist comes in. Behind the essay is the man who wrote it, and unless it conveys an impression of that personality, it loses much of its value. A good essay is a work of art, no less than a good poem or a good picture. It is the result of a conscious effort to produce a piece of writing at once elegant, pleasing, and expressing of the individuality of the writer. A good essay is a work of art, no less than a good poem or a good picture. It is the result of conscious effort to produce a piece of writing at once elegant, pleasing, and expressive of the individuality of the writer. Its proper execution depends upon the observance of unity, coherence, balance, and proportion is regard to its parts. This being so, a good essay demands a certain amount of skill in the selection and arrangement of a material and precision in the use of words and phrases and the capacity to produce just the right impression, strike just the right note. How then is one to become a good essayist? How is one to acquire the necessary skill, imagination, feeling, and taste? The answer is not for to seek. No one is born into the world a ready-made essayist, any more than he is accomplishment and he is born a ready-made painter or a ready-made musician. These accomplishments are the result of careful study and patience, practice, and the would-be essayist is in similar position. He must study the best models, Follow the best guides. Whoever wrote Johnson wishes to attain an English style, familiar but not coarse, and elegant but not ostentatious, must give his days and nights to the volumes of Addison. Now question is how the subject of the essay should be chosen. Often you have a number of subjects given to you, out of which you are required to choose one on which to write. In the examination room, where time is limited, choose a subject you know best, the subject on which you have most information. This will save some of the time which would have to be spent in the racking your brains if you selected a subject which you did not know so well. You can now arrange your matter and set it forth clearly and effectively. But when you are practicing for yourself out of the examination room, you need not restrict yourself to the subject you know best. If you have sufficient time and can command sources of information, you can select other interesting topics in order to widen your knowledge. Next point is information. A student often complains that he has not a sufficient store of ideas at his disposal for writing an essay on a particular topic. Information on these topics can be gathered from books, by observation, and by listening and talking to men who know. It is a good plan to keep a notebook in which you may jot down quotations, extract from the speeches and books, incidents you have seen or heard of, and references to books which give useful information. There is no direct road to which a student can be led for the collection of his material for essay writing. The only answer that a teacher can give his student is that he should read, observe, think, and practice writing. Now, next point is reading. In order to write an essay, the student must have something to write about, and so he must endeavor to store his mind with ideas by fruitful reading. To read a book is to live in the world created by the author. To read Hamlet or Kubla Khan is to enjoy the play of Shakespeare as if it were being acted before your eyes, or to be in the presence of Abyssinian Desmal. Books are peopled with characters that are more real than the actual persons of this world, and to enjoy their company is the happiest moment of our life. Bacon has rightly said, reading makes a full man. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. Some books appear dull and tiresome to be beginners, but once he has grown familiar with them, he feels that reading them has been a delightful experience. One may not like to read David Copperfield by Charles Dickens or Tom Jones by Henry Fielding, being overawed by the number of their pages, but if he has the patience to go through these books, at the end he will feel that it has been an enjoyable study. One should not read a book mechanically. One should forget his own existence for the time being and live with the author, feel with him, and enter into communion with him in every possible way. The student should mark the passages that strike him for their beauty of thought and expression and read them again and again until he feels that he has embedded their spirit and meaning. Now, next point is observation. Just reading is not everything. As the student reads, he must also observe. He must not allow his powers of observation to lie dormant. There are some people who go through the world with their eyes shut as it were to the beauties of nature. One who has a responsive mind can discover tongues in trees, sermons in stones, books in running brooks, and good in everything. None of us think enough of those things on which the eye rests. Why should the eye be so lazy? Let's exercise the eye until it learns to see the startling facts that run across the landscape so plain as a painted fence. Let's be ocular athletes. Let's learn to write essay on a stray cat or a colored cloud. Descriptive writing is one of the most difficult forms of composition, and a student cannot attain mastery in this art if he has not learned to observe what goes on around him or to gaze with pleasure on nature's naked loveliness. He should, therefore, practice writing descriptions of familiar objects and everyday occurrences. Not until he begins to put down upon paper such as descriptions will he realize how difficult it is to give a simple, clear, and complete account of any common object or event. Now, next point is thinking. The best method of making a student think is to arouse his curiosity and interest. He should learn to seek, he should learn to ask questions about what he has read, disagree with the author if his views are not convincing, point out what can be said on the other side of the question, and endeavor to see that what is printed in a book or a journal is not necessarily the last word that can be said on the subject. He should not swallow unintelligently every foolish thing he sees in the print. He should be able to weigh and consider things and evaluate them in the light of truth and sound reasoning. Now, next point is practice. G. A student should write as frequently as possible, for no one can write well who does not write often. One must take pleasure in writing because it is writing alone that makes an exact man. And if he is to learn anything, it is better that he should learn it by writing. You must think before you write. Whatever you write, you must write with care and thought. You should make it a point to avoid the same mistakes again and again. When your essay is corrected, it is your duty to make a careful note of the mistakes pointed out, find out why you have made them, and resolve to avoid them in future. If you do this, you are sure to become a good writer of English in course of time. So let's now look at the structure of the essay. In the discussion of the structure of the essay, the first point is unity. The essay is divided into paragraphs in the same manner as a paragraph is divided into sentences. The essay is divided into paragraphs in the same manner as the paragraph is divided into sentences. Just as the rule of unity applies to the structure of paragraph and sentences, it applies also to the structure of the essay. There should be unity of design in the essay, considered as a whole, as well as in its parts. This unity is secured by limiting the essay to one subject only. Care should be taken to exclude from it all matter irrelevant to the main theme. If the title is The Educational Value of the Cinema, one should not write as if it were the growth of cinema industry in Pakistan. One should discuss the educational value of films and confine oneself only to his aspect of the cinema. One should not be tempted by the other attractive aspects of the subject because that will amount to digression for its own sake. The writer should skew all irrelevant details, however attractive, which do not fall within the scope of the subject. Irrelevancies sometimes creep in from not taking sufficient trouble to understand the subject, its exact scope and implications. It is important, therefore, to ponder over the wording of the subject and to make up one's mind at the outset as to what precisely falls within the scope of the essay and what does not. Unity means sticking to the point. The composition is a whole. If the subject is dogs, do not interrupt an account of the various breeds to narrate the incident of the sagacity of dogs. Next point is coherence. The ideas expressed in the essay should be joined together logically. In other words, you should pay great attention to the arrangement of your thoughts, otherwise, your essay will be confused and incoherent. An essay is like a chain in which the various paragraphs are the links joined together. They are not isolated units. In every good essay, the paragraphs follow one another in perfect logical order. There should be no abrupt transitions, nor should the essay give the impression that it consists of disconnected and incoherent paragraphs. Now, next point is proportion and balance. The design of the essay will be faulty if proper proportion is not observed between its various parts. Great care should be taken to avoid wandering from the topic of each paragraph. The amount of space to be given to each topic must depend upon your sense of the relative importance of each. All unnecessary details should be avoided. It is also important that you should divide your essay in such a manner that the various parts you wish to stress receive due share of emphasis. No more and no less. Let your essay be properly balanced. Do not give undue importance to a triviality nor dismiss an important idea in a casual manner. Next point is the beginning and the end. What has already been said relates to the body of the essay, which is, of course, the substantial portion of it. Now, the body of the essay presents no difficulty provided you have something to say. What really gives trouble is the beginning and ending of the essay. In some essays, of course, abrupt beginning and ending may be preferable and even necessary, but frequently it may be found desirable to supply the essay with an introductory as well as a concluding paragraph, a head piece as well as a tail piece. An introduction is good which rivets the reader's attention and suggests to him The general aim of the essay. A suitable opening should lead without awkward break to the middle of the body of the essay. The introduction should also be short. As Dr. Blair says, nothing can be more absurd than the erect a great portico before a small building. For example, an essay on cats may begin in many of the following ways. Please listen carefully. First example of introduction of the essay. Centuries ago, man became the lord of creation, and he has ever since been trying to maintain his supremacy over the other animals. Some species he has completely destroyed, against some he is still waging war, and some he has tamed to his own purpose. Some animals have been tamed for their usefulness in one way or another, and some have been tamed merely as pets. Among the most common pets, the cat is the most important. Here, the essay begins with the general remarks, gradually leading to the subject to be dealt with. Now, second example of introduction of the essay on the topic cats. They say dogs love persons, but cats love places. Leave a cat anywhere, it will try to run home. The dog is faithful to a person, but the cat loves to remain in a place to which it is accustomed. This characteristics of cat is one of the most remarkable qualities. Here the essay begins with an accepted opinion. Now, a third example of essay. The cat is one of the common domestic pets of man. Cats were kept as pets even in ancient Egypt thousands of years ago, and the Egyptians worshipped a goddess who had a head like that of a cat. Although the cat is related to such ferocious creatures as the tiger and the panther, it has now lost most of its ancestral things. Here, the essay openly and directly opens with a general remark on the subject. The important point to be kept in mind is that the opening or introduction should be striking and relevant to the subject. It is wrong to begin far away from the subject in hand. The introduction should lead on the subject without unnecessary delay and without awkwardness. Well, begun, they say, is half done. An arresting and attractive beginning is therefore highly prized in an essay. A good conclusion, on the other hand, represents the climax of your efforts and sets a seal on the essay. A sting in the tail very often makes a good deal of difference. In ending of the essay, care must be taken that the end is not clumsy or inartistic. You may end on some quotation. An essayist closes his essay on cruelty to animals. Thus, Coleridge has rightly said, "He prayeth best who loves best, both man and bird and beast." Some make the last sentences richly suggestive of the whole. Thus, Johnson ends his essay on Shakespeare with the sentence, "This, therefore, is the praise of Shakespeare, that his drama is the mirror of life." Some add a postscript on afterthought to make the conclusion effective. Note the cleverly arranged effect of climax in the last paragraph, and it is effective. Keep your eyes open when you read and note how good writers contrive the ending of their essays. Good beginning and ending are, however, by no means easy. If they do not strike you at once, you will probably waste a good deal of time that you have used for your brains in search of them. The important thing, of course, is to see that your beginning leads up to end and that your conclusion arises out of the main theme. Now, question is, what is the middle of the essay? This is the main part of the essay and contains the appropriate facts, illustrations, and reflections bearing upon the subject. As regards the middle, there are only 2 points to notice at present. First, do not attempt and exhaust the subject. Do not try to give all that might be said. Exercise your selective instinct. Fix on the topics of outstanding interest and elaborate them within the limits of time and space allowed. Again, if the subject is scientific or historical or geographical, the essay should not bristle with figures and dates and formula. You are not writing a technical treatise but a literary paper of a general interest. Do not put an irrelevant matter just because you wish to make a display of some story or quotation or some other scrap of learning that you happen to possess. In this, as well as in other things, go to the best models for help and guidance. Study the works of the great essayists. Now the question is, what is the tone of the essay? A good deal depends on the tone of your essay. The general tendency is to make the school or college essay heavy and didactic like a sermon or a lecture. This is altogether the wrong touch to give to your work. The essay should have lightness, grace, and an ease of language approximating almost to the flow of conversation. The essay, by its very nature, is something pleasant, light-hearted, and delightful. It stands in sharp contrast to a sermon. It is a propaganda speech, a lecture, or a lecture of a piece of rhetorical oration. It should avoid being over serious, dull, or pedantic. The essay will defeat its end if it is ambitious or preach to reform or to hold a brief for a particular theory. The student should bear in mind that the essay loses much of its charm if it is full of dull moralizing or is written in a severe and forbidding style. The essay should neither be too brief nor too lengthy. If it is too brief, it would be an indication of the writer's paucity of thought. An unreasonable length essay is likely to be dull and boring. The student should not indulge in loose thinking, nor should he give vent to violent views in his essay. Vague generalization, dogmatic statement, violent accusation, and inaccurate assertion should be avoided. The essay should be full of mild discontent, and dogmatic statement like the following should be followed. Now the next point is the personal point of view. The good essay reflects the mind of the writer, his thoughts, his opinions, his feelings, and his experience. Some eminent essayists take us into their confidence in their essays. They write in the first person and become intimate with us. In such essays, on Years by Charles Lamb, on Catching the Train by A.G. Gardiner, and The Conjurer by E.V. Losas, and we are made to feel like privileged friends. The intimacy to which we are admitted is delightful. This, however, is not a good model for the school or college essay, because intimate revelations which may come well from such famous writers as have been mentioned may merely look ridiculous when written by you. Remember that the worth of a person impression depends on the worth of the personality that records it. Do not, therefore, As a rule, bring in the first person singular I unless you are asked specially for your individual impression or experience. If our narrative is a story of an incident drawn from our own experience, we may employ the pronoun I, but an essay, its use should be otherwise avoided. An essay should be in general as impersonal as possible. The charm of the personal pronoun depends upon the charm of personality, and as the award student cannot claim to be fascinating personality like Lamb of the Guardian, he should refrain from using the first person singular. For instance, if the subject is "Can war be abolished?", the student should not employ the first person in this strain. I am inclined to believe that the abolition of war will remain a pleasant dream. He should use the first person popular. He should use the first person plural if he likes, or he should better keep the assertion vague. Thus, he should say, "From all this, we can conclude, not I can conclude, that the abolition of war will remain a pleasant dream, or better still, from all this, it can be concluded that the abolition of war will remain a pleasant dream." So, now in last, the question is that how then shall we set about an essay? So, the following practical directions will be found useful. First one is devote a few minutes to understand the subject. Second one, set down the plan. Third one, collect material to fit your ideas and fill out your outline. Fourth one, think out a suitable effective introduction as well as conclusion to your essay. Fifth one, write out your essay according to plan, observing a sense of proportion in the time and space you devote to the development of your ideas. Sixth one, if you use a quotation, give it correctly. A misquotation can be very annoying. Do not point out the faults of the essay to your reader by including such sentences as "I know very little on the subject, it is very difficult," like this. So, in the end of the discussion, I would like to highlight the important points of the discussion. First one, what we discussed is what is after all an essay. Then we discussed the essay in America. Then we discussed choice of a subject, then information. After that we discussed reading, then observation, and then thinking, practice, unity, coherence, proportion, balance, the beginning and the end. Then we discussed what is the importance of middle of the essay, what is the tone of the essay, and then we discussed the personal point of view, and in the last of the discussion we discussed how then shall we set about an essay.